I just discovered a new and awesome way of making music. I'm a pianist composer, and recently I picked up this sampler/drum machine, and I didn't expect for it to really change the way I listen to classical music forever. I'm not exaggerating because I've been playing around with this thing for about a month, and some of my experiments have been really wild. For example, I was able to turn Ravel into this. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Mahler's hammer blow. This led me down a rabbit hole that not only got me through some writer's block I was experiencing lately, but it showed me new ways of listening and improvising. This was sort of like borrowing a tool from the hip-hop/beatmaking electronics community and bringing it into my world. So without further ado, let me share with you everything that I learned. To start off, what even is sampling? Sampling is like musical recycling. It's taking a snippet from a song, maybe a drum break, a vocal line, or in my case, the piano, and reusing it to create something completely new. Diving briefly into the history of digital sampling, the first affordable digital sampler came out in the late 80s, and it was called the Akai MPC-60. This completely revolutionized production and recording. It allowed you to take bits of music from a vinyl record and store it onto the device, allowing you to transform these sounds into a beat via sequencing and live performance. That led to generations of later devices, like the circuit rhythm that I'm using, made by Novation. I'm grateful that they're sponsoring this video, and I chose this device because it's super portable and easy to use. I also like the layout of the circuit rhythm because as a pianist, I'm used to pressing keys, so using a device with a lot of buttons like this makes a lot of sense to me. I was curious to see how I can transform classical music into a beat, so the first thing I did was to gather a few dozen samples. Some of them were gathered from my favorite classical recordings, and some were from my own playing. For that, I recorded myself at my piano using the Focusrite Claret as my audio interface and fed it directly into the circuit rhythm. By the way, the circuit rhythm already comes with a bunch of sounds built into it. I'm choosing to gather my own sounds because I want to start with sounds that I'm already familiar with, that I have a strong connection to. Once I had enough loaded onto the device, I was able to get going right away on my first beat. This experiment turned into something way more exciting than I had originally anticipated, but let me take you back to my starting point. I have the samples now loaded into the circuit rhythm. And I'm just going to make the beat now. Don't know what's gonna happen, but that's okay. Maybe the first thing is to find a kick drum type thing situation. Ah, that one. We have a beat. We're in business. Let's find a snare. I have it. That's it. I'm done. Oh, I like that. We're gonna keep that. Okay, now that I have the kick drum thing, let's make it more interesting. Modern music, that will definitely fit. So I was trying a bunch of things, but none of my experimentation really stuck until I focused on this piece by Maurice Ravel called Jadot. I used the tuning knob to detune it, which also slows it down just a bit. I then trimmed it down into shorter phrases and created a melody using this phrase starting at different pitch points. Okay. Once I had the beat, I felt like improvising this rather old school line on top. And for this, I thought I would steal from the original once again, but this time what I'm taking are the intervals and patterns. I think this was a good way to kickstart my understanding of how to use the circuit rhythm and about beat making in general. I wasn't really in my element though, as I was trying to copy some sounds I've heard before, so now I was really curious to see what I can do with sampling that involves more of my personal voice as a composer. Throughout the next week, I learned a bunch of other things I can do with this, such as looping and using the grid effects, which is where you can manipulate the sounds being played in real time, such as reversing the sounds, choking, and stuttering, just to give some examples. This beat uses more prepared piano sounds, which was really fun to include. I realized that like with any instrument or tool, you gain freedom as you master how to use it. I have a long way to go, but while I was on the road, I used pockets of time to get more and more familiar with the circuit rhythm. So at this point, a few things were happening. First of all, I was getting a little tired of the samples I was using before, so I loaded some new sounds onto this. All of these are from my hotel room where I was just banging on things. I've seen people do this all the time and it was really fun to do it myself. It just adds a completely new layer of a personal touch to the sounds that I'll be using to make music. I also have a lot of piano samples here where I played single notes, also chords, and these little phrases. As soon as I had these loaded onto the device, I just had so much fun doing this sort of thing where I was touching the pads, and this gave me completely new ideas. And with this, I was experimenting on the road and came up with this rhythmic idea while on the train. A lot of my percussive samples were made with kitchen utensils like chopsticks, so I wanted to make music that captures the feeling of being lost in a contemplative mood while cooking something in the kitchen. With that bass layer in mind, I'm going to improvise on my piano while triggering my samples with the circuit rhythm. I never expected this journey to turn out the way that it did. I started first with a traditional beat, then gradually expanded my ideas into something that I think is closer to my own style of expression. And my biggest breakthrough was when I realized that there's a lot of potential in merging sampled piano sounds together with a live piano performance. This is opening my mind and ears to new sounds and textures, and I think learning a new device like the circuit rhythm was a great gateway into this world of sampling and learning about new genres as well. I I encourage anyone out there that's also curious about all of this to just give it a try. There's something so valuable about disrupting the way you normally do things. It can lead to so many new ideas you can't get anywhere else, and plus, more importantly, it's just such a fun experience. If you'd like to make a beat using the same samples I used, you can download them by following the link in the video description to go to Novation's website, where I've also done an interview with Novation, which dives deeper into my musical process and my experience using the circuit rhythm. Thank you again to Novation for sponsoring this video. Thank you to my patrons on Patreon, and I will see you all in the next video.